Here's an axiom, a success principle. Do the right things long enough consistently. And that's what he says here. It says, I just work every day and repeat. Training is number one for me. Let's stop right there. If you want to become successful, you have to train yourself. You have to train your mind. You have to read books, listen to audios, go to events, associate with other people. You have to engage in personal development. Warren Buffett, richest man, one of the richest men in the world, said that all successful people, when they first start off, invest a majority of their money and time in personal development because it will pay the biggest dividends for the longest period of time. So training is key, and that's what he says. Training is number one for me. Most people don't look at training in terms of personal development. You think of training going to the gym, but training is just not working out in the gym as a guy or a woman, but training is working on your mind, training your mindset, training yourself with success habits. Most people have failure habits. We live our life by habits, and most people's habits are failure habits instead of success habits. So focus on training. And then it says, now listen to this. It doesn't matter what you have as long as you know where you're going and you have a goal. Guys, please believe in your dreams and work for them. Everything is possible. And this is a great statement because this is also a scriptural principle as well, which is all things are possible for those who believe. So this is very, very significant when it comes to training. And you see this, whether it's in golf, whether it's in tennis, whether it's in soccer, American football, basketball. You look at every star in every sport. When you ask them how they achieve their success, it's always the same formula. They did the right things long enough consistently. They trained their mind, not just their physical body and skills, but they trained their mind. They worked on training their mind. They worked on developing success habits. They worked on success principles. They spoke powerful words. They used the power of words to create their reality. They knew exactly where they were going. They had a specific quantifiable dream or goal or objective that they were shooting for. They saw themselves in possession of that goal. They could actually see themselves acquiring and being in possession of what they want. And they felt now as if they would feel if they were in attainment of it. And then the key is they did the work. They were absolutely 100% committed to doing the work every day. Most people, unfortunately, in life just don't do the work. They don't get out there and do what is needed to be done. You have to be willing to put in more in the beginning. You have to make investments before you can start getting a return. You have to plant seeds before you get a harvest. So you have to be willing to do more. Zig Ziglar always told me, he says, if a person does more than they're paid for, soon they'll be paid more for what they do. So you have to actually put in the time and effort first before you start getting a result.
Once again, Arnold, massive influence. I'm sure you can see the bodybuilding stuff behind me was really, a big influence on my life. One thing you said there that I think a lot of people miss when it comes to this envisioning, this goal setting, this dream, this manifestation, is he laid in bed, thought about it, envisioned it, but felt it, right? There's an emotional tie to the future outcome. I think sometimes we get so caught up logically, rationally, is like, I got to do the work. I got to do a thing. I got to write the journal. I got to write down. We miss that element of the emotional feeling. Talk to the importance of bringing that feeling and emotion into creating these future outcomes, if you can.
There's actually 25 ingredients in the manifesting, we'll call it, formula. You can call it a success formula, but it's really manifesting anything you want, whether it's a relationship or the health or a perfect body or success in life or money or a better job or career, whatever you want to manifest. There's 25 elements. And if you were to break it down, just the quick element there, of course, is define your dream and get a burning desire for its achievement. Well, if you would expand it just a little bit, it's you get a picture in your mind of what you want, and you see yourself in possession of what you desire, and you feel now as if you would feel if you were in possession of that. So it's really creating the future today in your mind using your imagination. That's the critical element. The feeling is the key. Neville Goddard, who is a very famous manifesting expert, he's passed away. His books are a little older and written in a way that's hard to kind of read today based on the vocabulary and things because they're from the turn of the century. But he was very, very scientific on adding the feeling to that picture, not just visualizing, but actually adding the feeling now as if you would feel. But there's two other key, we'll call it missing ingredients that make the law of attraction or manifesting work, which I haven't found in any book. I've got thousands of them and so forth. And there's two real missing keys. Again, there's 25 ingredients, but there's two missing keys. One is after you feel now as if you would feel if you were in possession of what you desire, you have to release attachment to that outcome. You have to release an attachment to it. In other words, it's okay if it never happens. And this is counterintuitive. But the reason you release attachment is because fear or a feeling of not getting it can creep in. Sometimes we call that lack or feeling of not having it. And that feeling will then create more lack and create never having it. So you have to eliminate that. And the way you do it is you release an attachment to an outcome. This is why in life we always say, when you least expect it, it'll happen. Because at that point, you've released attachment to the outcome, which means you've released wanting. Because if you want, the universe is going to make sure you're always wanting instead of having. So you have to release attachment to the outcome. You get rid of the feeling of lack or not having it, and then it can come in. You're in a state of allowing. You're in a receptive state. The second missing ingredient, which is really if there's one, what I would call the biggest missing ingredient, which is never talked about in any form, it's the why behind the why. It's this. I was talking to a Super Bowl champion. He won 6 Super Bowls. A lot of people don't fall into that category, so you may have an idea of who I was talking to. And he said, I love winning. I crave winning. I'm obsessed with winning. But there's something that's even more powerful than wanting to win. It's hating to lose. I hate losing. I hate losing more than I want to win. That's the why behind the why. You have to have pain. We're driven by 2 factors, either a desire to gain something, a desire for pleasure, or a desire to avoid pain. And the desire to avoid pain is always more powerful than the desire to gain pleasure. Which is why you see this hot girl at the bar and you think of, man, she looks fantastic. Just watching her talk to her friends, I love her personality. I love the way she dresses. She's just my look. And you have this great desire for pleasure. Maybe I'll kiss her. Maybe I'll go on a date. Maybe we'll be boyfriend, girlfriend. Maybe I'll go home with her and have sex with her. And you have all of these thoughts of these pleasurable potentialities. But then you also have this fear of the pain of rejection. And you don't go up to her because the desire to avoid pain is stronger than the desire for pleasure. I was with a guy down in Macon, Georgia. We're sitting on the porch, and I'm in a rocking chair. He's in a rocking chair. We're sipping some iced tea. It's a hot summer day. And it's an old kind of porch with, wood as, wooden planks as the porch. And this old hound dog is lying on the porch. It's a hot day. Of course, the dog's going to be lying there, with his tongue hanging out. It's a hot day. And every once in a while, this dog's head would kind of move and he would kind of howl a little bit. Ooh. He'd put his head down. A few minutes later, all of a sudden, he'd move his head again. Oh. and put his head down. This happened 3 or 4 times, about a half an hour. And I said to my friend, he goes, "What's wrong with your dog?" And he goes, "Oh, he's sleeping on a nail." I go, "Well, why doesn't he move?" And he goes, "Well, it doesn't hurt him that much." You get that? In other words, the pain wasn't bad enough to cause the dog to move. We're exactly the same way. Unless we can create, using our imagination, something in our life that we will not stand for, that we will not put up with anymore, we're not going to move. So we have to have some pain in order to drive us and clarify what we want. If we're driving our car and it's perfectly okay, we're never going to buy a new car. But if you're driving that car and you start creating in your mind how much you hate the car and how you fed up you are with the car, and you want a new Mercedes, that's the way you're going to be driven to create in your life the money required to buy that new Mercedes or whatever it is, that new pickup truck or that new blank or that new boat or whatever. You got to come up with some pain, something that is so intense that it moves you to create that obsession or that burning desire to attain something else, because you're really not desiring to get something else, but you're actually trying to avoid something.